Welcome to the Golden State Media Concepts Life and Happiness Podcast, the show that takes you on a journey of exploration. We'll discuss tried and true methods alongside the latest trends of how to best live your life to its fullest and happiest. From psychology to meditation, science to self-help books, the GSMC Life and Happiness Podcast will help you to discover what makes you happy and how you can live life being the best you possible.
Thank you for joining the GSMC Life and Happiness Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Melinda Barkhouse-Ross. So, the coronavirus. Yeah, absolutely no laughing matter, and in fact, seems like it's getting more and more serious as the hours tick by, right? Its effect is being felt at a global level and will probably be felt for a really long time after things have started to calm down, after the curve has been flattened. I don't want to diminish that in any way, but what I want to talk about are a few ideas for the now likely case that you find yourself quarantined or being told to stay home for 14 days, or if you are being told to stay home for 30 days, whatever the case is. So self-isolation can be something we introverts have practiced on a pretty regular basis, but I have a feeling that this could feel a lot different when we're in the thick of it. In fact, one of the things that might help us as much as it may irritate us to think about, especially us introverts, is social media. I think it's going to be a really handy tool to help us stay connected to family and friends, or even coworkers while you're working from home. I think it's going to be a bit of an advantage here. One of the things that we understand about loneliness is that it is a real issue. When things are even fine in the world, this happens to the elderly, who can sometimes go weeks without even the luxury of having a single conversation. According to artandhealing.org, loneliness affects more than 1/3 of American adults, with particular likelihood among individuals facing challenging life circumstances like the loss of a loved one and chronic or catastrophic illnesses like diabetes, heart disease, mental illness, or cancer. Loneliness has negative effects on mental health, worsening depression, anxiety, mood disorders, and cognitive decline, and on physical health. It leads to higher rates of cardiovascular impairment, chronic pain, and fatigue. Now, there are certain age groups, mostly adolescents, young adults, and older adults, that seem to be particularly at risk for the growing incidences of depression and substance abuse when it comes to loneliness. But health risks associated with loneliness and social isolation are comparable to the dangers of smoking and obesity, increasing mortality rates of up to 30%. Obviously, this is all information that is looking at more long-term social isolation or long-term isolation, much longer than a 14-day self-quarantine. It can, however, not take long for you to start to feel a little bit of cabin fever. And again, I'm not making light of this pandemic of the coronavirus or its global impact, but I think that talking about what you do should you find yourself under quarantine and starting to feel this way is a good idea. How do you stay positive when everything around you feels absolutely chaotic and out of control? How do you keep depression and anxiety under control in these situations? Hopefully, over the next hour, we're going to come up with some pretty great ideas. And if you are under quarantine with family, my suggestion is that each person in the family have a space designated for solely them that they can go to in the house. Could be bedroom, could be, a corner in the living room or a special chair or something like that. But it's just a space where you can get away from everybody else. And when you're in that space, it's a signal that you are looking for just a few moments to catch your own breath and to get your mind straight. So the experts, when it comes to, by the way, self-isolation in your house, if you're there with your family, experts are suggesting that everyone sleep in their own bedroom. Do your best to keep towels and dishes separate unless you're doing your wash, and try to wash commonly touched surfaces like doorknobs and countertops once a day. For some of us, working at home is going to be an easy transition. Emails and the ability to log into staff meetings and stuff like that online likely isn't going to feel like a vacation for long, and I think that the novelty of working from home could get old really quick. Watching TV can start to make the anxiety shake itself awake as well. All of the news seems to be bad news at the moment, or at least it certainly feels that way. The level of uncertainty that we're facing is what's really getting to me. The fact that nobody knows what's going to happen next. If you are not working for 30 days, 14 days, or if it's been called off for the next 3 months, or even closed until we reevaluate, all of those things are affecting a number of people across a lot of different industries. It's all to help slow the spread of corona, and it is all to help us stay healthy and safe, but it is adding to, I'm sure, increased levels of anxiety and maybe even panic. Now, I'm sure, too, that you have seen the spring break hits that are heading to Miami to enjoy some R&R. Obviously doing this against the advice of officials. It's easy to color them as a bunch of dum-dums, but they have also delivered a few cringeworthy sound bites on the news. But, okay, we have all been young and probably felt really invincible at certain points in our youth. I'm not excusing their behavior, but spending spring break in lockdown when the news channels have been saying for weeks now that it's not affecting young adults as severely as it's affecting other people has probably added to their level of carpe diem, right? I just hope that they can deal with the consequences of their actions should there be any. And this could become the first dose of reality that they have to face. I just hope that it doesn't come at the expense of someone that they love. So I've been doing a lot of reading of different articles online about things like social isolation and how to keep yourself connected. And I was reading an article by Olivia Goldhill on Quartz. You can find it at qz.com. In the article, Goldhill talked about a psychiatry professor named Rima Straya and a colleague of hers, Laura Hayerlich, who is a professor of critical care medicine at the University of Toronto. They did a study and found that 29% of those people who were quarantined during the SARS outbreaks had PTSD symptoms, and 30% showed signs of depression. So being quarantined, either voluntarily or not, can be very upsetting for a lot of people. You'll feel like you're at the mercy of circumstances and that you are not in control of your situation. Again, it's the uncertainty and the seemingly murky information that we're getting that I think is helping to lead to a lot of this stuff. Now, you know, you're seeing a lot of stuff, I'm sure, on Facebook and social media that, like, garlic kills the coronavirus. This is absolutely not true. The World Health Organization is doing their part to try to dispel a lot of these myths. You can just Google World Health Organization. It's going to take you to their website. And everything that you could possibly need, even great videos to help explain the situation to your kids, is going to be really great and a really useful resource that you can find on the World Health Organization website. The CDC website as well is really great and has a lot of good information. There was also an interesting opinion piece on Wired.com. It explored how one of the myths about coronavirus went viral online. In the article, author Gabby Dutch mentioned that since coronavirus first appeared in Wuhan, China, colleagues at Northgard, which rates the credibility of news and information sites, had been tracking all of the websites in the US, UK, Italy, Germany, and France, and had spread verifiably false claims about the coronavirus. So far, she said they have identified 132 such sites, and some of the more popular topics of misinformation have been about the virus's origin. For example, one of the more popular topics of misinformation is that the disease is tied to 5G wireless technology or Bill Gates. Or one of my favorites is that China stole the virus from Canada, took it back to China and weaponized it and then let it out. And that's where it all has come from. Guys, none of this stuff is true. You really need to make sure that you're checking your sources before you go ahead and share stuff. It's not just your mental health that you should be looking out for, but sharing credited and verified information is going to help all of those people that are on your friends lists and your followers on social media. Honestly, you really need to be responsible for the stuff that you're sharing. One thing that I suggest, if everything you see on social media, maybe take it with a grain of salt. And since you're under quarantine, I mean, you can spend a bit more time poking around the internet to see if it's a credible news site, things like that. Also, cross-reference it with the government sites. They have a lot of information on it. Just think before you share it. That is going to be huge. Now, being quarantined and practicing social distancing, it all sounds amazing to introverts, but it's going to even get to you guys, or us, I suppose, because I count myself among you. We're going to talk a little bit more about that after the break on the GSMC Life and Happiness podcast. We'll be right back.
Are you tired of the same old news? Are you sick of the seemingly endless political spin and negativity? The GSMC America's Still Beautiful podcast is a weekly news podcast covering all the top positive and uplifting news stories. We cover stories that will inspire, uplift, and remind you of the good in the world. Tune into the Golden State Media Concepts America's Still Beautiful podcast to get all the great and positive news stories of today. Download the GSMC America's Still Beautiful podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Welcome back to the GSMC Life and Happiness podcast. I'm your host, Melinda Barkhouse-Ross. So, being quarantined or practicing social distancing, or even the ability to work from home and only heading out into the world for essentials, this all sounds incredible to introverts. But the lack of human interaction is going to get to even the most devout of us introverts, and it's going to manifest itself in a lot of different ways. So there's a lot of advice columns that suggest things like taking up a DIY project that you've been putting off, or organizing your closet. The thing is, I know, because I've been through the struggle and continue to go through the struggle, that none of these things are going to feel appealing to you when you're knee deep in a depressive episode, right? So I want to talk to you a little bit about how to stop the darkness from creeping in the first place, DIY projects or not. Now, again, I have to mention that I am in no way trying to present myself as an expert in the mental health field. I am absolutely far from it, but I do deal with depression every single day, and these are just a few of the things that I have used and a few of the things and ideas that I have had when it comes to fighting back against depression, particularly when we are in this kind of situation. And hopefully we'll get a chance to talk a little bit about how you can apply it to your situation. So it's hard to not feel stress, right? Maybe you've one of the workers who have been laid off short term, and while we wait for the pandemic to start to turn tide and subside, it's been great to see all of the ways that like landlords and banks, even some utilities, have started to waive rent and mortgage payments for people. Cell phone companies, in some cases, have taken down the data cap and aren't charging for overages. All of this is really great, but the stress isn't always going to go away so easily. Now, some of the things that you should be looking for, according to the CDC website, stress during the infectious disease outbreak can include things like fear and worry about your own health and the health of your loved ones. Of course, you're going to be worried about your friends and family. Of course, you're going to be worried about yourself. That's not unusual, and you shouldn't try to discount those feelings. Changes in your sleep or eating patterns. I mean, really, you can nap at any point in the day. So, of course, changes in your sleep patterns or eating patterns are going to be a byproduct of that. But when it starts to become severe, that's what they're talking about. Maybe you have difficulty sleeping or concentrating. The opposite of, the ability to fall asleep on a dime, the inability to fall asleep at all is something that you should be watching out for. Worsening of chronic health problems and increased use of alcohol, tobacco, and other drugs. I mean, boredom, right? Now, according to the CDC website, people with pre-existing mental health conditions should continue with their treatment and be aware of new or worsening symptoms. You are your own best advocate, and it doesn't matter what healthcare system you are part of. If you are in the States, if you are in a place that has public health care, you just be aware of you and yourself and your feelings, and check in with your body and how you're doing on a regular basis. This is going to be really important. Now, if you do see a therapist on a regular basis, I'm willing to bet that they have some kind of something set up. So if you need to talk something through, if you need to express how you're feeling, that they have something set up. So please contact their offices and check in and see if there's a way that you can even just get some of your regular sessions in, because I think some semblance of some kind of normalcy is going to be a big deal for you. Now, taking care of yourself, your friends, your family, that is going to help you cope with stress. Helping others deal with their problems can also make your community a little bit stronger. And when you're in the middle of looking out for friends and family and neighbors, you've got to remember that there are things that you have to be doing to look after yourself too. It's easy to get swept up in making sure that everybody else is okay and ignoring your own feelings, but this is not the time to do that. The CDC is suggesting that you take breaks from watching, reading, or listening to news stories. This includes social media. Hearing about the pandemic repeatedly over and over and over again is going to become upsetting. There's no way for us to get around that. So make sure you take a break from the 24-hour news channels and sit back and watch something fluffy on Netflix, or, look at hilarious memes on Facebook. Whatever you need to do. Take care of your body. Take some deep breaths. Make sure you stretch. Try to meditate, even if you've never done it before. Just find some time to sit quietly. Try to eat healthy. That's huge. Well-balanced meals. Try to get a little bit of exercise in. Make sure you're getting sleep, and avoid alcohol and drugs. Another thing that you want to do is make sure you have some time to unwind for yourself. Try to do some activities that you enjoy. Make sure you're connecting with others. Talk with people that you trust about your concerns and how you're feeling. If you've been dealing with depression, you probably have a bit of a support circle set up. Make sure you stay in contact with those people, not just for you to talk about how you're feeling, but also for them to be able to express themselves as well. The commonality of how we're all feeling, I think, is one of the things that is going to help everybody get through this a little bit. You've probably watched the movie where someone is going through a breakup and they're all sad and depressed, and their friends show up at their house, and the first thing they do is throw back the curtains and let the sunshine in and open up the windows and let fresh air in. I am here to tell you that there is something to this. I have no idea what it is, but there is something to this aside from the visual cue in a movie. One of my absolute favorite things to do is the opposite of this. Bear with me though for a second. One of my absolute favorite things to do is fire up Netflix, probably a documentary series, probably ancient history, ancient Rome, or ancient Greece. And I find myself wrapped in a cocoon of blankets with my dog Chop and some delicious snacks, probably gummy bears, right? I like to do this in absolute darkness. It feels safe, it feels secure, and for some reason it feels soothing. However, doing this for days on end is not only going to lead to an upset tummy because you haven't been eating any actual food, but it's actually going to start to play into or even trigger your depression. So after you've indulged in some Netflix, it's important to get up and open a window, throw back the curtains, let the sun come in, and open up the window and get some fresh air. Personally, when this happens, I will get my face right up into that window and I will take like 5 deep breaths. And I mean deep breaths to the point where it feels like your lungs are going to pop. Deep breaths. And then exhale, and do that until you have no air left in your lungs. And then another deep breath. Get all of that nice fresh air in, and then get out that old stank, dank, stale air. Get it all out of your system. Now, this is unconfirmed, but it is just some self-observation that I've noticed how the difference is that I feel. But bringing in some fresh, lovely air to your system once the window is open is going to just make you feel a little bit lighter, make you feel a little bit brighter. Do the same in all of the rooms through your place. If you're in a cold climate, just open the windows for a few minutes. Get some of that new air in. Get some of that stale air out. That's what it's all about. Something you're going to notice is that, well, being in a cocoon state, you've somehow managed to make an incredible mess out of your place. Next step, when I'm trying to fight back against my natural inclinations at this point, which is to just re-cocoon and go back to bed, is just to do something small. Unload or load the dishwasher, sweep the floor, maybe just take the dishes off of the counter and put them all into the sink so you can wash them later. Anything like that. Maybe if you are trying to feel super ambitious, change the blankets and the sheets in your cocoon room, because soon you're going to have drier, warm sheets and blankets, and that is a whole new level of comfort and cozy and happy, right? You're going to melt into that comforter. Oh, it's going to be all peace and all relaxation. It's nice. Now, close the windows, because you've been enjoying the fresh air, and if your place isn't freezing at this point, that's cool, but you don't want to leave the windows open for too long if you are in some of those cooler climates. Shower. Now, if you happen to have essential oils around your house, I'm not one of those essential oils can cure anything people, but one thing that I like to do is I will take peppermint oil or eucalyptus oil. Both I use to help me with my migraines. Is I will put some on like a face cloth, and I will just put the face cloth down by the drain so I don't slip on it when I'm in the shower. And I have a super hot shower. All of that steam is going to turn into a delicious vapor. And I find mint and eucalyptus it's delicious. It's such a good smell, and it's going to make you feel fresh, and it's going to make you feel awake, and it's going to maybe even help you feel a little bit more vibrant too. When you get out of the shower, you're going to want to put on some of those cozy jammies again so you can just crawl back into your cocoon. Nay, I say, what you're going to want to do is put on some shorts and a t-shirt or even a tank top. Wear some light clothes and enjoy feeling light and airy, right? Now, your curtains should still be open. If it happens to be a sunny day, what I want you to do is make your favorite tea or your favorite coffee. Throw a cushion on the floor unless the sun hits your couch, right? And enjoy the feeling of the sun on your skin and on your face. Try to sit there for about 20 minutes. Enjoy your coffee, enjoy your tea, maybe make a phone call to some of your favorite people just to check in. Again, that's going to help you feel connected and part of a larger community that exists outside of your immediate area. Added bonus, 20 minutes in that sunshine is going to give you some vitamin D, and that is going to start to perk you up as well. So the question is, how often do I need to do all of these things? Because that sounds like a pretty full day for somebody who's pretty lazy. It's not as much as you think, and we'll talk about that a little bit after the break. For the GSMC Life and Happiness podcast, I'm Melinda Barkhouse. Hang on, we'll be right back.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Welcome back to the GSMC Life and Happiness podcast. I'm your host, Melinda Barkhouse Ross. So, before the break, we were just talking about all of the ways that you can start to uncocoon from your Netflix binging. And I do encourage you to do it. I know, man, Generation X, we are so good at just doing nothing. And it's really been one of those skills that we can brag about a little bit when it comes to this kind of thing. But you do need to get up, and you do need to make yourself at least a little bit busy a couple of times a day just to keep your body moving. It's going to help you to feel better, I promise. But how often should you be doing all of those things that I talked about before the break? I mean, you could very well do it every single day. You could do it every other day. You could break it up and do some parts of it all the time, like sitting in the sunbeam with your favorite cup of tea while you check in on people. That could become part of your daily ritual that you have to do by 11 a.m., for example. If you're going hardcore Netflix and cocoon, I think washing at least the sheets a little more often than you usually do is going to make them feel better and more inviting, and it's going to help you to feel better as well. Another thing that you can do to help yourself feel better and brighter, and it's something you don't have to do every single day, but you can, is just a few simple exercises. Like, whoa, I know. I'm not suggesting that you do high knees or run on the spot or even push-ups for that matter. All I'm suggesting is maybe while you're waiting for your tea to steep or your coffee to brew, that you do a little dance, shake your little booty while you're in the kitchen for a little while. You can even do some deep squats while you use the counter for balance. Just something to get the blood flowing a little bit and to help make you feel awake. So once you've done this, you're left with hours to fill. Hours. This is the struggle, right? I've got all of this time and nothing to do. Be bored for a little while if you need to. I mean, I think that's an important part of the human condition too. But the experts suggest that reading a book or taking on a project that you've been putting off is going to be huge for keeping yourself busy while you're home, whether you're with family or whether you're by yourself. And nothing is going to feel better than avoiding those projects that you have been putting off now for like the last 6 months. Continue to avoid those. What I like to do is find a new project that I can actually start and never intend to finish if I don't feel like it. So I feel no pressure whatsoever to complete it. Those paint by number paintings that you can order, I'm sure you've seen the ads on Facebook. They are actually really fun to do. You can focus, you can hyper focus on them so your brain doesn't wander, and you can lose an entire day to taking care of it. I suggest getting one of the more intricate ones because they take a lot more concentration and it's going to take you a lot more time to get through it. But it's entirely up to you. They are, by the way, graded on stars. So like 1 star is easy, 5 stars is the hardest, which I ordered the first time and didn't understand the star rating. So that's a heads up for you. But yeah, they are time consuming. You can easily lose a day to one. And you even have some evidence of your productivity. And if you're like me, you're going to sit down with a little crafty project at your table. You're going to need something for a drawer. That's going to turn into reorganizing the drawer, which is going to turn into cleaning a pair of sneakers because you found a new pair of shoelaces that you forgot you bought for those sneakers, which is going to turn into going through your closet to find the jacket that you always used to wear when you always used to wear those sneakers, which is going to turn into what did I do with that CD that has the song on it from that band that I haven't listened to in forever, but I saw them in concert when I was wearing this jacket, which is going to turn into you eventually sitting in the middle of absolute chaos looking at old photos. This is normal. I mean, I think it's normal. It happens to me all the time. Eventually, it looks like my adequately clean space looks like my closet vomited all over the place. It's likely around this time that the sky is starting to darken, though, in terms of your day. And since you aren't expecting any guests to come over to your house for a visit, you can cook something delicious and hopefully something with some kind of nutritional value and go back to your cocoon. Let the mess marinate for a day. Yeah, do it. I'm sure that everything is a mess, but you've actually made a little bit of progress today. You've managed to get some fresh air, right? You managed to get some vitamin D because of the sunbeam that you were sitting in earlier. You've worked on a craft or some kind of project to help fill those hours. You've checked in with friends and family, and Netflix is just feeling good for you and feeling like that's what you should do next. Then just do that. Honestly, nobody is going to pass any kind of judgment, especially if you're home all by yourself. Yes, please just sit down and do that. So the name of the game for all of this is what I'm trying to get to, and that is distraction. How to keep your brain busy when there isn't a whole lot to engage in. It's the idle train of thought. That's where I know I'm most vulnerable to those negative thoughts that lead to what I call spinning, which eventually does take me into a pretty depressive state. So I like to keep myself engaged in some kind of constructive activity. Actually, it doesn't even have to be constructive, just some kind of activity. I may find a little bit of time to learn how to TikTok. Aging myself way too much and being awkward on a new social media platform to a brand new audience. That sounds fantastic. Also, nothing is more humbling to the ego than learning something that I'm sure my 7-year-old nephew could likely do in 5 minutes. Working from home is going to be another thing entirely. And a lot of the struggle, I think, comes from defining a space and a time where you are working from the rest of the house. The ability to be business from the waist up and attend an online video meeting while you're not necessarily wearing pants is going to be part of the fun. But the distraction of pets or kids or the combination of the two can make that defined space and time feel really complicated, and that can really drive up some of those stress levels. The possibility of confusing kids as well. Mom and or dad are home. I'm home. It must mean it's playtime because this happens on the weekends. This may be something that I don't mean to do this, but it may be something that is a little bit easier for 2-parent households. because you can tag team both the kids and you can tag team those important meetings and video calls and stuff like that. Honey, I know single parents, y'all do your thing and you hold everything down and you make everything work. So I know for sure that you all are going to have it figured out as soon as you can. And I know that you're just going to crush it. There's absolutely no doubt in my mind about that. So I don't mean to make that sound like I'm not into single parents and think that they're going to have a harder time with this. Something as easy as being able to, say, sit at the kitchen table instead of the couch is going to help you focus on the work part of your day. The couch can be where you spend time scrolling through social media and Facebook and all of that kind of stuff. And the kitchen table can be where work things happen. Maybe this is just ingrained from childhood. It's where homework was done, right? And by homework, I usually mean crying over math problems because Sally had 357 apples and Sam had 78 oranges. So I had to figure out how many bananas Brad had. Oh, you know what? It never seemed rational to me. I always thought that they should just get together and start making a fruit salad, but that was never the right answer, according to my math teacher. I still think he was very wrong, though. I think I was right. Defining that working space is going to be a pretty big deal, and defining your working hours and finding times to take breaks and stuff like that. I don't think that bosses are going to be unreasonable if they have sent their staff home to work from home. I think they're going to be very understanding, and I think that a lot of bosses are going to really see the reality of what a lot of their employees deal with on a regular basis. It's easy for bosses to forget that sometimes, I think. Coming up next, we are going to keep the focus on your kids, and we're going to talk a little bit about how kids and teens may be reacting to all of the stuff that's happening with COVID-19 and how you can help support them through everything. And the CDC does a really great job of breaking this down. So does the World Health Organization. They even have videos that explains it to kids, so you may want to check that out. But we're going to talk and give you a couple of suggestions courtesy of the CDC website. We're going to talk about that next on the GSMC Life and Happiness podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. We'll be right back.
The Golden State Media Concepts Travel Podcast, the show that gives you advice on everything travel. We explore places you've always wanted to go, as well as giving tips for traveling in those places. We'll give you advice on the best sites for travel tips, information, and discounts. Join us as we travel the world, explore cultures, and meet new people. The Golden State Media Concepts Travel Podcast has got you covered. Download the GSMC Travel Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Welcome back to the GSMC Life and Happiness podcast. I'm your host, Melinda Barkhouse-Ross. So for parents, keeping an eye on your kids, your teens, and how they are reacting in part is going to depend a lot on what they see from the adults around them. This is according to the CDC website. Parents and caregivers dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic calmly and confidently is going to be the best support for their kids. Parents can be more reassuring to others around them, especially to their kids, if they are better prepared. So not all children and teens are going to respond to stress the same way. And some of the common changes to watch for include things like excessive crying or irritation in younger kids, returning to behaviors that they have outgrown. For example, potty training is going well. Wonderful. But if they start coming back to having accidents or more accidents than usual, this could be a sign that they're having a bit of a struggle. If they seem to be excessively worrying or if they seem to be really sad, this could be an indication of that. Unhealthy eating or sleeping habits, your kids, you know how they usually eat. If that changes, make sure you check in. Irritability and acting out behaviors in teens, even worse than usual. We were all teens. We know how it feels, right? Again, your kids. When behavior is out of the ordinary. Difficulty with attention and concentration, avoiding activities that they used to really like, or unexplained headaches or body pain can all be indications in your kids and teens that they're having a bit of a hard time dealing with everything going on with the coronavirus. And the CDC website talks as well about things that you can do to support your kids through this time. It's just some suggestions for parents virus. And I just want to make sure that we do talk about it a little bit, because I think that kids learn the most about their coping mechanisms and how to deal with their own mental health from the people around them, the most trusted sources. So I just want to make sure that you are armed as well as you can be for everything that's going on. So what you want to do is take the time to talk to your kids about the COVID-19 outbreak, answer questions, share facts, which you can find on the World Health Organization website or the CDC website, probably two of the most reliable sources right now about the COVID-19 outbreak. And make sure you're doing it in a way that your kids and your teens can understand. You don't have to dumb it down for your teens, but you may want to simplify it a little bit for like your 5-year-old, for example, if they seem to be curious about it. Reassure your kids that they are safe. Let them know that it's okay if they feel upset. Share with them how you deal with your own stress so they can learn how to cope from you. I really do think that you are the best example. Limit your family's exposure to things like the news. That includes social media. Kids may misinterpret what they hear and can be frightened about something if they don't understand it or misinterpret something. Keeping tabs on that kind of stuff is really important, but you don't want to completely tap out, because you do need to stay informed on the things that are going on. So try to find the right balance of that for your family. Try to keep up with regular routines. If the schools are closed, create scheduled time for learning and activities and relaxing and fun activities, right? A great thing, I think, since home ec isn't really in schools anymore, is to take the time and teach them how to cook. I made bagels for the first time and they were pretty good. I don't understand why, but a couple of days after I made them, they were flat. They were easier to fit in the toaster, but I'm not really sure what happened there. But, you know, that could be a fun way for you guys to de-stress a little bit and help them learn some life skills as well. Be a role model yourself. Make sure you are taking breaks. Make sure you are making sleep a priority. Make sure you exercise a little bit. Make sure you are eating well. Connect with your family and friends, and make sure you're doing that when the kids are around. A video chat with cousins, or even a video chat where you and another part of your family play a game together, like Pictionary or something like that. Could be a fun activity, and it could help everyone feel a little bit more connected, and it's going to help people get their minds off of things for a little while. I don't understand this whole toilet paper thing. It's got me completely baffled, but I understand it. It's gotten to the point where you're forced to go out and probably buy more than what you need, because who knows when you're going to find it in a store again, right? If you happen to find it. There are a lot of stores and shops that are starting to set limits per customer to curtail the situation and help us remember that we need to be reasonable. But maybe it's time for us in North America to get past this whole bidets are gross thing. Maybe we need to embrace the bidet so we can get off of this toilet paper thing. I don't know. One thing that my husband and I did while I was working on today's podcast was he made a giant pot of chicken-based chili. We couldn't find hamburger because, well, there just wasn't any around. So we did manage to find a big pack of chicken. So we went ahead and whipped up a giant pot of chili. We're freezing it, so it's something that we can make stretch for a little while, and it's going to be a delicious something that we can have should we start to run out of things in the house. The uncertainty of everything is really what I've been having a problem dealing with. I mean, how are you supposed to make a decision about something today if you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow or next week or in 2 months? You don't know if people are going to be going back to work. You don't know if more people are going to be sent home. I know there are a lot of people who have had to do things like cancel dream vacations that they've spent years saving up for. And I know you are like, oh, boo-hoo, you had to cancel a trip. But really, this is something that people have looked forward to. They have been daydreaming about. They've probably planned it to the letter. They've been saving the money to make it all happen. And now they can't take that trip. So hopefully they've got some kind of travel credits and they're working with everything to make sure that they'll be able to take that trip at a later time. But you shouldn't discount that these people are going to feel disappointed about something that they've been dreaming about for such a long time, and they were not in control of whether or not they could go. That they should be allowed to feel that without being told that they are bad or horrible people. I think that's fair. I think that these people absolutely understand the gravity of the situation, but, you know, all of that saving and pinching pennies to not be able to take your vacation would be crushing, incredible disappointment. The truth is that in these times where things are so uncertain, it could even be some time before we're able to move freely through the world again. So it is very reasonable to have mixed feelings about it. Trying your best to stay upbeat and positive for those around you is massive emotional labor. It really is. And you need to find some time to take care of you for a little while. You need to find things that are going to be good for you to do. It does kind of come down to self-care, but I'm not suggesting that you quarantine yourself into the bathroom for a long hot bubble bath. That could be a little more complicated in your household, but it could be as easy as making sure that you have some healthy food for yourself to eat in the house, maybe something special that you can eat after the kids are in bed so you can really enjoy it. I know that it isn't a necessity, and I know that everybody is saying, try to limit drugs and alcohol and stuff, but having a bottle of your favorite wine so you can enjoy one glass to yourself at the end of a day is going to help you unwind, and it's going to help you take care of yourself a little bit. Even 60 seconds, remember that Breathe app that I was talking about before? Being able to have that and finding some quiet time and just going through that and breathing in and breathing out. It's just a check-in with yourself. It's an opportunity for you to sit still and focus on you for a minute. Remember, what you need to do is fill your cup first. Then you can share it with others. If you are depleted, you're not going to be giving people around you the best of what you can. So this is why I think that self-care is so important. Up next on the GSMC Life and Happiness podcast, we're going to go into myth-busting mode. We're going to go over to the World Health Organization website, and we are going to talk about some of the myth-busting that the World Health Organization has done. They have an entire section of their website dedicated to it, and we're just going to go over a few of them because I feel like that's an important thing to do. We're going to do that next.
GSMC Beauty Tips Podcast gives you advice on everything from hair to fashion to skincare products. We'll talk about the latest trends in makeup, hairstyles, and anti-aging remedies. And we'll cover all of the newest fashion trends. If you have an interest in or questions about the beauty trends that might work best for you, the Golden State Media Concepts Beauty Tips Podcast has got you covered. Download the GSMC Beauty Tips Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Welcome back to the Life and Happiness podcast on the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Melinda Barkhouse-Ross. There are so many crazy claims out there about how you can avoid the coronavirus or COVID-19. And there are a lot of ways that the World Health Organization has gone, and they've spent a lot of time into making factual pieces of information to kind of counteract some of the misinformation that's out there. So I thought we would talk about a few of those. Some of them do seem pretty wild, but some of them kind of almost seem like they could make sense, but I wanted to make sure that we had some clarity on it, especially if you want to use any of this information when you're talking to your kids or, that uncle who insists that he's always right. It may not be. So COVID-19 virus can be transmitted in areas with hot and humid climates. From the evidence so far, this is all on the World Health Organization website, the COVID-19 virus can be transmitted in all areas, including areas with hot and humid weather. Regardless of climate, you should be taking protective measures for the area that you live in or travel to an open area reporting COVID-19. The best way to protect yourself against COVID-19 is, again, frequently washing your hands. By doing this, you eliminate viruses that may be on your hands and could affect an infection that could occur when you're touching your eyes, your mouth, or your nose. So you may have heard as well that it can't be shared in cold climates. Well, it can. It does travel. Cold weather and snow cannot kill the new coronavirus. It cannot. There's no reason to believe that cold weather can kill the new coronavirus or other diseases. The normal human body temperature is always around 36.5 degrees Celsius to 37 degrees Celsius, regardless of the external temperature of weather. The most effective way to protect yourself against it is, again, frequently cleaning your hands with alcohol-based hand rub or washing them with soap and water. There is no reason to believe that cold weather can kill the coronavirus or other diseases. Taking a hot bath does not prevent the new coronavirus disease. Seriously. People believe this. Can you imagine if it was as simple as having a hot bath? silly. It is going to make you feel a little bit better, maybe some of your self-care stuff, but taking a hot bath will not prevent you from catching COVID-19. Your normal body temperature, again, remains 36.5 to 37 degrees, regardless of the temperature of your bath or shower. Actually, taking a hot bath with extremely hot water can be harmful, as you may end up burned. You could burn yourself with hot water. The best way, again, I'm going to keep saying it, the best way to protect yourself against COVID-19 is by frequently washing your hands. By doing this, you eliminate the virus that may be on your hands and avoid infection that can occur by touching your eyes, your mouth, or your nose. So the fact, taking a hot bath does not prevent the new coronavirus. It does not. The new coronavirus cannot be transmitted through mosquito bites. To date, there has been no information nor evidence to suggest that the new coronavirus can be transmitted by mosquitoes. The new coronavirus is a respiratory virus which affects primarily through droplets generated when an infected person coughs or sneezes, through those droplets of saliva or discharge from the nose. To protect yourself, clean your hands frequently with alcohol-based rub or wash them with soap and water. Okay, do we have that yet? Wash your hands. Also, avoid contact with anybody who is coughing or sneezing. So, no, the coronavirus cannot be transmitted through mosquito bites. There hasn't been any evidence to support this. Now, again, all this information, you can find it for yourself and share it with your kids or share it with people on social media. You are able to download and share the cute graphics that they have and stuff like that. So I encourage you to do that. Hand dryers are not effective in killing the coronavirus. How is this even a thing that people have thought? That's absolutely wild. Okay, to protect yourself against the new coronavirus, you should frequently clean your hands with alcohol-based hand rub or wash them with soap and water. Once your hands are cleaned, you should dry them thoroughly by using paper towels or a warm air dryer. They do not kill the coronavirus. However, you have to wash your hands. Can an ultraviolet disinfection lamp kill the new coronavirus? UV lamps should not be used to sterilize hands and other areas of skin, as UV radiation can cause skin irritation. No, don't do it. You're just going to create more problems for yourself if you do that. How effective are thermal scanners in detecting people infected with the new coronavirus? I feel like this is a good question. Thermal scanners are effective in detecting people who have developed a fever, which is higher than normal body temperature, right, because of an infection with the new coronavirus. However, they cannot detect people who are infected but not yet sick with fever. This is because it takes between 2 and 10 days before people who are infected become sick and develop a fever. They are effective at catching people who already have developed a fever, but it may not even necessarily be from coronavirus. It could just be from, the flu or colds that we usually see around this time of year. This one just seems dangerous. Can spraying alcohol or chlorine all over your body kill the new coronavirus? The World Health Organization says no. Spraying alcohol or chlorine all over your body will not kill viruses that have already entered your body. Spraying such substances can be harmful to clothes or mucous membranes like your eyes and mouth. Be aware that both alcohol and chlorine can be used to disinfect surfaces, but they need to be used under appropriate recommendations. Your skin is not a surface that you should disinfect with chlorine. Why would you? Wow. Okay. So no, the answer is no, but, use your alcohol and use, your cleaners to wipe down surfaces with disinfectant and stuff like that. That is going to help contain things in your house if you are under quarantine or if someone in your house is sick, okay? Do vaccines against pneumonia protect you against the new coronavirus? This is a fair question. And again, this is all on the World Health Organization website. It's a place where you can go and check out, and everything is broken down and things are very clear. So even if you need to talk to your kids about coronavirus, maybe you want to help them understand the situation so they feel better, I highly recommend the World Health Organization website. You can also go to the CDC website. They've got some great information there as well. So the question, do vaccines against pneumonia protect against the new coronavirus? And the answer, no. Vaccines against pneumonia, such as pneumococcal vaccine and type B vaccines, do not protect against the new coronavirus. The virus is so new and so different that it needs its own vaccine. Researchers are trying to develop a vaccine against the new one, and the World Health Organization is supporting those efforts. Although these vaccines are not effective against COVID-19, vaccination against respiratory illnesses are highly recommended by the World Health Organization. So That's another thing that you can talk about with your kids. Can regularly rinsing your nose with saline help prevent infection with the new coronavirus? According to the World Health Organization, no. There's no evidence that regularly rinsing your nose with saline has protected people from infection with the new coronavirus. There is some limited evidence that regularly rinsing your nose with saline can help people recover more quickly from the common cold. However, regularly rinsing the nose has not been shown to prevent respiratory illnesses or infections, and that is what the coronavirus is, okay? So keep that in mind. You don't have to go crazy with the neti pot. Can eating garlic help prevent infection with the new coronavirus? This is one of my most favorite ones. Yeah, there are antimicrobial effects that garlic does have, but there is no evidence from the current outbreak that eating garlic has protected people from the new coronavirus. It may, however, help with your social isolation or social distancing. Just a thought. Does the new coronavirus affect older people, or are younger people also susceptible? This, I feel like, has been one of the more murky pieces of information that we have had. People of all ages, this is according to the World Health Organization website, people of all ages can be affected by the new coronavirus. Older people and people with pre-existing medical conditions like asthma, diabetes, and heart disease do appear to be more vulnerable and are becoming more severely ill with the virus. The World Health Organization advises people of all ages to take steps to protecting themselves against the virus. For example, following good health and hand hygiene and good respiratory hygiene are going to be key. So again, wash your hands. And the last one that we'll talk about, again, you can find even more of them because there seems to be a lot of misinformation out there on the World Health Organization website. Are antibiotics effective in preventing and treating the new coronavirus? Apparently, no, according to them. Antibiotics are not going to work against the virus, only bacteria. The new coronavirus is a virus. Therefore, antibiotics should not be used as a means to for prevention or treatment. However, if you are hospitalized, you could receive antibiotics because of a bacterial co-infection could be possible. So you could get something as well as coronavirus. So just a couple of things for you to be aware of, and I think important for us to stay focused on good, accurate, and current information as much as possible. And I really do think that you should have the CDC website bookmarked, and you should have the World Health Organization website bookmarked, because if anybody has any questions, you can go there and you can look it up. Or if you read something that seems a little bit odd, you can fact check between those two websites, and you're probably going to be able to either confirm or find ways to dispute some of the claims in the new stuff that you're seeing. So we'll be right back. What is life going to be like when you're finally out of quarantine? We're going to talk about that next on the GSMC Life and Happiness podcast, part of the GSMC Podcast Network.
Pets bring such joy to our lives, and the GSMC Pets podcast is here to share in that joy. We'll tell stories of pets finding their forever homes, acting in unexpected ways, being helpful, or just being silly. Whether you love dogs, cats, llamas, reptiles, fish, or you've never met an animal you didn't like, the GSMC Pets podcast is for you.
Welcome back to the GSMC Life and Happiness podcast. I'm your host, Melinda Barkhouse Ross. So, for people who have been released from quarantine, what the heck is going to happen? Because as we learned earlier in the podcast, there was a study done on people who have been quarantined during the SARS outbreak. And a lot of those people did experience increased instances of depression and PTSD symptoms. So you are released from quarantine. It's going to feel like a whole new world. You're probably going to feel a little overwhelmed as you run out to start running a couple of errands. You may feel lingering symptoms of depression. Everyone feels differently when they're coming out of quarantine. And this is all according to the CDC and the World Health Organization. Some of the symptoms include mixed emotions, including relief after quarantine. Absolutely. Why wouldn't you feel relief after you've been quarantined and you're able to move a little bit more freely? Of course you would have mixed emotions. Absolutely. There's probably a little bit of fear of going out and coming into contact with the virus again and having to go back into quarantine. You've been through it. You know that it can be a pretty dark and fearful place. So mixed emotions are completely normal in this one, I think. Fear and worry about your own health and the health of your loved ones. I think that once you've been on quarantine, you're going to be like hyper aware of all of this stuff when you come off of quarantine. Stress from the experience of monitoring yourself and being monitored by others for signs and symptoms of COVID-19 is going to, I think, continue to play on you a little bit. I know there have been a couple of times when somebody has sneezed in public. They've done it right. They've sneezed into their elbow, but it's been like allergies, but everybody stopped and it was an uncomfortable pause. And then somebody finally said, bless you. But, you know, I think everybody is just being hyper vigilant and hyper aware, and it can be a stressful situation. Sadness, anger, or frustration because friends or loved ones have unfounded fears of contacting the disease from contact with you, even though you've been determined to not be contagious. That's huge. And, you know, family, friends, loved ones, we're all going through it, and we're all going to deal with it in very strange ways. I think trying not to take it personally is the best way that we're going to be able to deal with that one. The idea that you're no longer contagious, but people saying, you might be, is just them being overly cautious. And I don't think it's fair to fault them for it. It's as unfair of you to fault them for it as for them to not be willing to, welcome you into their homes again once you've been found to not be contagious. Guilt about not being able to perform normal work or parenting duties during quarantine. That's huge. I mean, there are going to be people who are quarantined in bedrooms while their household is running normally, just on the other side of the door. And a lot of guilt can easily set on your shoulders during this time. But you just have to remember to not take it to heart, not take it personally. There are going to be other emotional and mental health changes as well that you need to deal with. And you need to make sure that you're checking with yourself, and you need to make sure you're acknowledging those feelings. Again, nothing is wrong with any of the ways that you're feeling. If you are feeling frustrated, that's fine. You can, but you've got to work through the frustration. You've got to find the healthy way to deal with it. Absolutely be sad. Please do. We're living in very uncertain times. And, just a few months ago, we were living in a mostly certain world. I mean, we felt like we could predict what the next week would look like. Now, we truly have no idea. And it's okay to find that hard to deal with. I think we all are finding that hard to deal with. I know that I certainly am. It's the uncertainty that's bothering me. Okay. Children are also going to be upset or have other strong emotions if they or someone they know has been released from quarantine. For example, let's say Uncle Jim has been released from quarantine and he's coming over to the house. The kids could be very leery of Uncle Jim, and it could be simply because they know that he's been quarantined and they have equated that with being sick or being contagious. And while not fair to Uncle Jim, you need to make sure you take your time to explain to your kids what the difference is there and how Uncle Jim is now perfectly fine. Coming out of quarantine, I think it's also going to be important for you to try to stay positive. Make sure you're looking at the big picture. For a lot of us, this is inconvenient and maybe a slight hardship, but there are many people around the world who are far worse off. Make sure you're trying to find the silver lining. You are now off of quarantine. You could even start talking about your quarantine experience on social media. Maybe do a couple of posts about it, because you're going to be helping people who may be just starting their quarantine. Or, do a blog. Keep a blog. If you're under quarantine, do a blog and talk about the things that you're doing during the day. Try to find a community and connect with a community. I think that's going to be absolutely massive for those of us who are dealing with it. To wrap things up, what have we learned? We have learned that kids take massive cues from the adults around them and people that they look to learn things from. So you need to keep a handle on yourself first, and then that is going to help show your kids how they can handle a crisis. Teach them your coping mechanisms. If you know they love chocolate milk, maybe while you are having your tea and sitting in the sunbeam, you can give them some chocolate milk and have them sit in the sunbeam with you, and as a way to really help them and involve them in the routine of learning how to self-care and make sure that they themselves are taken care of. Another thing that I think we learned is that the isolation is going to be hard, and it's so easy to do nothing but turn into a blanket cocoon and watch Netflix for days on end while eating gummy bears. None of this is really good for you. It's really not. You should be eating real food, and you should be turning off the TV once in a while and finding something else to do. It's so tempting, and I understand it. I am a lazy girl. I love my TV time. I love my Netflix. I love my Amazon Prime. I love all of those things, but there is a point where you're going to have to turn off the TV so you can start to do something even mildly productive. Like I said, you're going to get to a point where you start to do a craft project, and if you're like me, it's going to turn into cleaning out a drawer, which turns into cleaning a pair of sneakers, which turns into finding a jacket, which turns into looking for an old CD, which turns into, your house just looking like an absolute cyclone went through it. There's nothing wrong with that, but take that as an opportunity when you clean things up to do a bit of a purge even. That could take a couple of days for you to straighten out, and you'll be able to donate that maybe to the Red Cross, or donate it to any of your local charities that take clothing donations. It's going to be helpful. It's going to be huge. Learning how to do things and teaching your kids how to do them too. I mean, they're not at school right now, so it's a perfect opportunity for you to teach them things like how to make homemade bread. Maybe you've never done it before. It's something that you can learn to do together. Another thing that I think is huge for parents and kids is taking the time to really connect with other family members and their cousins and stuff like that. I think the idea of doing a FaceTime and having the families competing against each other playing Pictionary or a trivia game or something like that is going to be good for everybody. You're going to feel not quite as isolated, and it's just good to see familiar faces and spend a couple of hours where you're not, constantly onslaughted with all of the information about the coronavirus. And it's just good to forget, I think, for a little while. And it's important for us to be vigilant, and it's important for us to make sure that we're staying on top of the most current information. But it's easy to get overwhelmed. And I think taking a break is a pretty great idea. Otherwise, you're just going to get lost and feeling hopeless. And I don't think that we need to go there quite yet. I don't think we're in a hopeless situation. We're in a scary, uncertain situation. But I think that we are going to come through this, and I think that we're going to do just fine. I have full faith in our scientists around the world, and I believe that all of the new restrictions and things like that are coming into play are really there to help us to stay healthy and to stay safe. So until next time on the GSMC Life and Happiness podcast, I'm Melinda Barkhouse. If you are under quarantine and you have a little bit of time to kill, drop us a little 5-star review on your favorite streaming service. Maybe leave a comment and let us know what some of the ways that you are dealing with quarantine and having to spend time by yourself. We would love to hear from you as well. You can find us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram as well. Hit us up and let's start a conversation. Now is as good a time as any, honey. We're all not up to much, right? I'll talk to you next time.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Life and Happiness Podcast, part of the GSMC Podcast Network. You can find the show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcasts on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type in GSMC to find all of our shows. From the GSMC Podcast Network, from sex and relationships to health and wellness, life and happiness, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's episode of the Golden State Media Concepts Life and Happiness Podcast.